Hello everyone, this is Bobbin Threadbare, and welcome back to the Human Revolution.
You hear what that Pikus bitch was saying?
The resurgence of Detroit due in no small part to Seraph Industries.
What a fucking load. Resurgence? The city's ready to blow up and Seraph and his Frankenstein factory are the reason. Today a hostage-taking and an anti-AUG demonstration. Tomorrow a riot.
I ain't doing nothing, so you can just go get fucked, soldier boy. Ain't you worried about going out of style with those AUGs? What about when the nano soldiers come along, huh? They're gonna sit you in a field and watch you rust away.
I'm sick of it, man. I get hassled by the cops every day. But a real fucking gun runner lives in an apartment right here. He gets away scot-free. What a fucking joke. Guy sells weapons out of his apartment and has a storage locker full of crap. The cops never bother his ass. He must have laid down some serious grids to be ignored.
Man, that's one resentful group right there. I mean, it sounds like they got reason to be, but still. Hey, look. Someone dropped a stop worm just right on that transformer. So, yeah, there are two ways into this apartment complex. And, yeah, nothing else besides that. This here is the top floor, and, what the hell? Apparently, did not grab that box the right way. There we go. So what do we have up here?
Them D-Row cats is gonna get popped if they keep trying to tag over my shit.
Oh yeah? How so?
Got me a Hurricane TMP-18 from Sarah.
That's sick shit, man. I didn't know Surratt carried those.
Double T cut him a break on his rent, so he brought some in just for us. Turns out apartments in this dump ain't exactly cheap. That's far enough. Leave quietly and you won't get hurt.
You don't want to get no closer, Og.
Keep out of this hand.
Ah, there we go. Yeah, the thing about the double takedown is that it does help to point at one of them. Let's see here. Ah, damn it. Ah, bedroom door code. You know... Oh, what the... Whoa. That guy was in a hurry. Yeah, I get the feeling that maybe it would be a better idea to just drag these people around the corner here. Get them out of the way, you know. But yeah, this is the augmented gang, as you can tell from the arms. Apparently they sell them in gang colors. Also, that's what it looks like when you blow up a wall. It's fun. You don't need the strength AUG to do that either, by the way. It helps, but if you find a weak wall, you can destroy it with anything that's destructive. Guns, explosives, you know the drill. But yes, this is an alternate way into the bedroom. You can see the door code was just there. In fact, let's just open the door here. Why not? Hack their computers, see what they've got on their records. Interesting how they've got the one-way cycles going on here. Probably didn't need to harden that third node there. But hey, 45 seconds and I'm already done.
Access granted.
Tindle. That's the guy who was working with the guy who was stealing neuropazine. Apparently, that neuropazine is coming to the gangs here. Like, possibly not directly, but they're certainly in the line of acquisition. But damn it. There. Yeah. Apartment's a mess, though. does it for the top floor here. Now, they were also talking about Gun Runner on this floor, and we didn't get a discount from the other guy. I mean, we did that in the wrong order to get a discount, but we wouldn't have gotten a discount from the other guy. Man with a gun. I think he doesn't like me hacking, even though that's not his apartment. But hey, better safe than sorry.
Access granted.
There we go. So, what have we got here? Bunch of pegboards here. Or not pegboards, the cork boards. Because that's cork. That's why they call it that. Lots of pizza boxes and magazines, too. Well, she listens to the conspiracy radio. Or, well, technically, I shouldn't know the gender of the person who owns this apartment, but... Jesus, look at this. This is getting weird. Luckily, I hit spam a couple of times, a couple of spam nodes, so it's actually pretty weak. And that is the stop virus. Gives you like 5 to 10 seconds.
Access granted.
5 to 10 seconds that just stops the timer. From T. Stevens to V413? Yeah, Laura. There we go. Laura's the person who owns this apartment, and she's a conspiracy journalist. And she's got this spam mail. The Nigerian spam mail.
Access granted.
I used a nuke there. And now, what's this? The automatic unlocking device. Now, the way that works... Hang on. I'm not sure what I'm looking for here. But I did remember that I have a shotgun now. And yeah, the automatic unlocking device, that is a grenade slot item, oddly enough. And yeah, you can just go up to an electronic device, slap it on, it blows up in a couple of seconds, which is good because hacking is real time. And it also works on like level 5 hacks, so...
The guy you want to deal with is over there. The guy you don't want to deal with is standing in front of you. I'll be watching you. Don't try nothing funny.
You want to buy or sell something? It's all on the computer. What you want?
I'm a friend of Greg Thorpe.
Really? Okay, I give you the egghead discount.
Nice. Alright, get rid of another machine pistol, but I'm keeping that shotgun. Don't need the crossbow bolts. Now, what has he got for sale? Oh, a silencer. And I could also buy a stun gun from this guy, but I don't have to, so I won't. Yeah, silenced pistol. It's just that simple in this game. Oh, hey, He's got a guest. By the way, you can hack stuff in here, but if you try to close the door to, so he doesn't see you hacking anything, that gets him suspicious. It's actually pretty interesting. Like, he doesn't actually fire on you, because I guess he thinks a mysterious visitor shut the door? I don't know. But yeah, he gets suspicious if you go inside and close the door after you, even though, he doesn't get suspicious when he sees you rifling through his computer, or, hacking his safe. Because, yeah, that will also get you in trouble if someone sees you slapping on an AUD. Oh, that's interesting. The little thing, it didn't pop up. And that's because we found it earlier. We found a copy of it earlier. Because that is actually the one that, what's her face? Letitia will give you, if you give her enough beers, is a different copy of that particular personal secretary. That's what they're called. And it's to get into this... Or hang on.
That Kassanchik is right on. You see a report on people voluntarily amputating themselves and getting augmented? What a bunch of freaks. Cutters. They just encourage others to augment themselves for no good reason.
You trying to scare me, Skinner? Because you don't.
There is an achievement associated for getting the ball at least somewhere near the basket. Like, I don't think you get the same little phrase that pops up, but it's been a while and I've got the achievement, and super strength kind of makes it actually hard to throw that correctly. And oh dear, lasers. Well, fortunately, you don't have to worry about the lasers if you move some stuff and get into here. And yeah, thanks to the personal secretary, you get the code for this and for the door, because this is Surratt's stash. This is where you get some combat rifles for free. Tranq darts, a silent sniper rifle. Yeah. I mean, I don't use it, but that's still a lot of money. And that sets off gas in this garage. That is what tripping the lasers would do, and that wheel there is how you disable the trap if you accidentally set it off. Anyway, you'll excuse me for a moment. I've got to go sell Surratt's merchandise back to him, and I'm done. This is actually a pretty nice shortcut. Gets you to the northern half of the map. It is the second way of getting to the northern half of the map. And also a way to get to the middle part of the map on the right side. But I don't really care about that.
People been saying arms equal progress. Look at me. I've been progress right out into the street. Man, this city went to shit when the oil industry tanked. Cars falls right behind.
I've been out on the streets a long time. Seen a lot of bad shit out here. Something nasty is going down, man. The duck has got his head in the noose.
I'm sure that means something to you. But yeah, if you have super strength, you can also access the middle part of the right side of the map directly. But that's not where I'm going right now.
Access granted.
Because right now I'm still exploring. Specifically, I'm finding myself a stun gun. You know, I'd say it's about time I clean up my quick list down there. Yep, start out with small arms, shotgun. Move up to the combat rifle and the long-distance tranq gun. Stun gun is actually going to be a guest entry in this list. Energy items will be going in the middle, and explosive grenades are on the right side because you only have to select them infrequently and my fingers are only so long.
I hope you ain't here looking for trouble, my friend. That would be a mistake you don't want to make. I'm tight with the DRB crew. You mess with me, they'll take you apart and sell you for scrap.
Oh, hey. Hidden treasure. I can't get to it from here.
What do you want, Knock? Look at you. You ain't nothing but another corporate stooge working for the man.
There we go.
Look at you. You ain't nothing
You
but
trying to
another
scare me,
corporate
Skinner?
stooge working for the man.
You don't. Without them Ogs, you nothing. Nothing.
You an ex-banger? You got the look. Maybe you know the Big Ant. He's been busting DRB heads for years. I wouldn't get on his bad side, though. He's not too picky about which heads get busted.
Big Ant, huh?
You meet all types in this city. Og, purist. I say live and let live.
Yeah, well, the purists don't say live and let live, so, you know...
You watched the hockey game last night? Wings against the Habs? What a massacre. If our guys play like that for the rest of the season, we could kiss the playoffs goodbye.
Hey, it's someone who doesn't care about augmented people. Sports. Yeah, this is interesting. Get onto the overhang here. Nice place to look down upon the populace. Over here, we've got a cargo container, which is, for some reason, just... Oh, there we go. I was wondering what would be in here. Yeah, for some reason you got a cargo container right in the middle of the street. But then, of course, they blocked off the street with chicken wire, so... Anyway, this is our apartment building.
You see that kid Dominguez broke the strikeout record last night? Fucking guy's got a mechanical arm, and they're saying he's the second coming.
People see conspiracies everywhere. They're saying that Lim's personal catalog
Biomod industry is going to tear this city apart. Mark my
No
words.
offense, but if it were up to me, this place would have a no-og policy.
Sarah has almost single-handedly kept the city afloat for the past 15 years. A lot of people have jobs because of him.
Doesn't mean he has the right to look down on us. In fact, most people who support augmentation technology have that sense of entitlement about them. Like, because they have money and can enhance themselves, they can do whatever they want.
Put it in perspective, Sherry. If the people you're talking about have jobs, chances are they have David Seraph to thank for it. You work for Seraph Industries, don't you? I think it's terrible, all these attacks against your offices. Please tell your colleagues that not everyone in this city thinks they shouldn't be here.
Before you ask, no, your mirror has not been replaced, Mr. Jensen. Today I've had to deal with petty vandalism, unreasonable demands from corporate clients, and a variety of other pressing problems. So facilitating your grooming had to be given a lower priority.
But that ain't never gonna happen. Not with people like David Seraph throwing their weight around.
You're a very lucky man to be able to afford all those augmentations. And the neuropazine, according to Eliza First. Billions on that stuff.
Let's see what her computer has to say.
Oh.
She's had the mirror for 4 weeks, and they're going to have to return it soon because she refuses to pick it up. Thanks, Sherry Terhorst.
Shut down the legal rally prematurely and closed the Broadview Tunnel. Perhaps they feared what might happen.
But yeah, like it did mention that we are living in a penthouse apartment.
Mr. Jensen, I fixed up your apartment real nice. That special request you asked for works like a charm. There's lots of room behind the big screen. I put the stuff in there that you asked me to. And thanks for that little something extra you left. The wife will be happy.
That's nice.
The good Lord made you in his own image. Why would you desecrate yourself? Don't you realize that the only thing you need in this world is his love?
Does that apply to veterans who have to live without legs and arms?
Welcome home, Mr. Jensen.
Does that apply to quadriplegics who cannot move without assistance? Anyway, this is Jensen's apartment, so we can look around this place to get a feel for the kind of person Jensen is. Apparently he's only half moved in. That probably has been for the last 6 months. But yeah, starting a combat rifle count, that's one. Apparently he's gotten into clock building recently. He also has a very large TV, probably courtesy of Seraph. But yeah, this is the station where he spends a lot of his time. Workstation. This is a couple of old people from the 50s, I guess. And this is a bunch of mechanical devices from past centuries. Along with a picture of a couple of guys in uniforms. And this is what he's been living on. Cereal and canned soup. And canned peas. Even Jensen's cardboard boxes are not safe from me. Combat rifle count number 2. Oh, Jesus. Here's his personal computer. Bunch more photographs. Half-eaten sandwich. And there's Sherry Terhost, again, refusing to acknowledge the fact that she's got the mirror waiting. And someone killed Jensen's dog. Because they couldn't accept him. They didn't know that he would be alive at that point, let alone recovering. But meanwhile, Megan Reed is dead, so yeah, I killed the dog. A bunch of get well cards here. And there's the broken mirror. Now, personally, I think he was just pissed off that the engine couldn't handle a real mirror. But yeah, little note there. Nice touch. Alright, but one of the things we... Oh, combat rifle number 3. Yeah. I get the sense that Jensen is kind of a paranoid guy. And also, based on some of the photos around here, he's also ex-military, along with being ex-SWAT. So that would explain, you know, why he feels like he needs to arm his entire apartment here. Yeah, and top shelf is full of medications. Bottom shelf is full of a bunch of stuff for his pistol. Including, as you noted, armor-piercing rounds. Yeah. Now, the 10mm pistol ignores all armor. It will headshot anybody in the game.
Establishing security system.
Nice.
See you soon, Mr. Jensen.
Well, anyway, I wasn't going to do this before, but did you know that you can attack or knock out literally anybody in the game outside of a few specific areas where your ability to attack things is turned off? Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's like women, civilians, whatever.
Of the Humanity Front movement.
If you don't like them, you can just punch them.
To gather in protest earlier in the week, but police decided to shut down the legal rally prematurely and close the
It does freak everybody out, but, you know.
Please! Please don't kill me!
Who cares about that? Right, anyway, this is the apartment I missed before. I'm back. And I am hacking it open. It's a level 1 hack.
Access granted.
Nice. So this is Tindle's apartment. Interesting decor he's got here. Kind of wish they'd used, you know, a higher res image for that painting, because it does not blow up well. Nothing hidden among the bookshelves. What have we got in here then? You know what? I have this random idea that maybe I should put this refrigerator in the front door. I don't know. I don't get it. But I think I just have to do it, you know? Nice. Alright, and... yep, nothing in the bathroom. There's the security gate update again. And this is apparently, Tindle is out on the street near the gas station, waiting for a client of his. Seems like someone's interested in this apartment suddenly. Someone in an alarmed state. But what's this? They can't get inside because of the because I put a refrigerator in the door. Interesting. Alright, now as he makes his move the wrong way, we can just straight up knock him out without any sort of worry about him spotting or shooting at us. Yeah, you know the sad part is that it calls this guy a junkie, but in this case his junk isn't a high, it is an anti-rejection drug that he would otherwise literally die without. So, you know, saddest junkie ever, right there. Alright, all my weapons are fully loaded. So let's go talk to Tindle. I'm not cutting this out because he is literally just a couple blocks away. Like, here we are, already. That's it.
Jensen? What are you doing here?
I think you know why I'm here, Tindle. I want Corella's security footage back.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm Seraph Industries' chief of security. I'm pretty sure I can find out about an edited security tape, so don't bullshit me.
Ah, shit. Listen, Jensen, I never wanted things to get this bad. I'm not a bad guy. I feel for Corella, I really do. But sometimes, for a good cause, you have to get your hands dirty.
Oh, there's a good cause now?
Oh, I see. You think I'm selling the stuff, right? I understand why this would seem like an obvious motive, especially to an ex-cop. But trust me, you shouldn't always take things at face value. I'm not selling the neuropazine, I'm giving it away.
Giving it away? To who?
To the people who need it. You think everyone gets augmented by choice? No. Shit happens. And then what? You're saddled with neuropazine injections for the rest of your life, and that shit costs money. But what choice do you have? Without the drug, you'll die. Rejection syndrome, crippling pain, that just ain't right. So I did the only decent thing to do. I stepped up.
Well, you're also giving your neuropazine to gangsters.
Whatever your reasons, Corella wants out, and it's his right. Blackmail is still blackmail. I won't leave without that footage, Tindle.
I'll screw the footage. Right now, I've got 2 local pushers on my back because they say my philanthropic actions are undercutting their profit.
That's not your only problem. A gun-toting client was waiting for you in your apartment earlier.
Really? In my apartment? Shit, the dealers probably sent him. Tell you what, I'll deal with the client later. You take care of the dealers, and the footage is yours.
You can actually knock them out instead of killing them, and you'll still complete the quest. But screw it. I can just appease him right now.
Look, you're right. You're in a tough situation. I wish I could help you out of it, but it's your mess, right? You're the one who's got to step up and do it.
He sounds just like my old man. You're lucky I respected the dude. Here's the footage. Guess I gotta face the mess I got myself in.
Old man would not be capitalized in that usage. Anyway, we got the footage. Hooray! We can complete our first side quest. And the guy's right over here.
Did you get it yet? Adam, please. You have to get that security footage back.
Oh, hang on.
Let me get back to you.
Almost forgot. You can check it out. Yeah, it's in the quest inventory. And yeah, data storage device. You can check out its description.
Did you get it yet?
I got the footage. You owe me one, Tim.
Yeah, you got that right, Jensen. I mean, thank you so much. This is my life I just got back. Here, there's the weapon mod, as promised.
Now, he at least was in over his head, definitely.
Listen, I know you were trying to do a good thing, and I respect that. But you should do it through proper channels. Next time you might not get this lucky.
Yeah, you're right, Adam. I know you're right. Listen, thanks again.
Give to a charity that hands neuropazine out to the unfortunate. That's legal. Jeez. Anyway, he did give us a laser targeting system. That's going straight on the combat rifle. Much better accuracy. That's what you need on one of those. So today, we'll be heading back to AV Corner to discuss a movie that isn't exactly cyberpunk, and kind of isn't a dystopia, but which nevertheless has elements of both, and also manages to take the concept of cyberspace more literally than any other movie before, and most others afterwards. Specifically, I'm talking about Tron. The story about the story. The story of Tron begins with a small animation studio in Boston, of all places, and with the man who created it, Steven Lisberger. Lisberger Studios spent most of the 70s focused on creating animated commercials and promos, and there was one project that they particularly enjoyed. It used a new technique called backlight compositing, which is basically where you cut lines into a black frame, shine a colored light behind it, and then take a picture of it to get this neat glowing effect. You can then superimpose the frame on another picture, hence the compositing. They named the character they animated Tron, since it looked like he was electronic. In 1978, Lisberger got a big break when NBC greenlit his idea for the Animalympics, a series of cartoon shorts which the network would run between actual events during the upcoming 1980 Olympics. The project demanded that he get a bigger team, and so he moved everyone from Boston to Venice in Los Angeles, since LA has a bigger pool of animators to draw from. Unfortunately, the 1980 Summer Olympics was the one that took place in Moscow, and the United States boycotted those games after the USSR invaded Afghanistan. To say the least, the Animalympics project fell through. Still, Lisberger was not one to let politics get him down, and so he and his team immediately set about asking for funding for a new project, one which would be based on Tron and backlight compositing. They actually did a lot of the writing and storyboarding for the film ahead of time, and the producers from Disney in particular were quite impressed by the enthusiasm for what was, after all, something nobody else was doing. It also helped that Disney was in a creative slump during the late 70s, and the company also had a history of taking insane risks. After all, Walt Disney himself created the first cartoon with synchronized audio, the first feature-length animation, the first live-action movie ever created by an animation studio, and of course he built a goddamn theme park in the 50s at a time when everyone thought the concept of an amusement park was dead. Tron broke a lot of ground in a lot of different ways. Aside from the backlight animation, which created the glowing lines that give the film its distinctive look, Tron was also the first film to use computer animation in a big way. There's less of it than you might think, but it was still around 20 minutes of a 90-minute movie. 4 computer animation firms took part in Tron's development, although each firm had its own tricked-out mainframe computer and their own strengths and weaknesses, and so each one was in charge of different aspects. One firm created the transition animation. One handled the bit character. One created most of the vehicles out of geometric shapes, and one used vector lines to create the Solar Sailor and most of the backgrounds. As far as the actors go, Jeff Bridges as Kevin Flynn was one of the first to sign on to the project. He was already a pretty big name at the time, and he decided to go with Tron because he'd had success with first-time directors before, and he liked the crew's enthusiasm. Bruce Boxleitner decided to play Alan Bradley in Tron, despite mostly acting in westerns, because of that same enthusiasm. On the other hand, Cindy Morgan as Dr. Laura Baines and Yori had to be talked into the role, mostly because she was completely computer illiterate and had no idea what was going on. Finally, they got David Warner to play Ed Dillinger, Stark, and the MCP. Lisberger would later joke about falling into the old cliché of having a British guy be the villain, but David Warner is such a good actor, he decided to go for it anyway. In the end, despite being a crazy experimental project, Tron managed to do modestly well, making back almost twice its budget at the box office and getting some fairly positive feedback from the critics. Still, Disney would have to wait for the end of the 80s to fully break out of its doldrums, plus the movie got incontestably snubbed by the Oscars. The Academy refused to consider Tron for the Special Effects Award because they thought that using CGI was cheating. On the other hand, Tron's legacy has been steadily growing over the years. The film was, in many ways, far ahead of its time, being one of the first special effects extravaganzas to be filmed in a mostly empty soundstage where all the actors had to pretend like they could see the scenery. It also served as inspiration to a whole new generation of animators and computer scientists, animators including John Lasseter, the creative head of Pixar. Tron is now considered one of the best science fiction films of all time, and, thanks to its slow start, one of the best cult films, too. The story. Tron begins at an arcade named Flynn's. As a patron plays the game Light Cycles for fun, the programs in the cycles are playing for their lives. Turns out that, within the computer world, Sark and the Master Control program are basically taking over the world one computer at a time. And those programs the MCP doesn't absorb into himself, he sends to the arcade games to die in pointless combat. In the holding cells, 2 captured accountancy programs have a chat, and we learn that the MCP has been telling people that users, that's us, are nothing more than a religious myth. We next cut over to Kevin Flynn, who is using his Clue program to hack into the MCP's database. It doesn't go well, but in the process, we learn that programs share the appearance of their programmers. In response to the intrusion, the MCP calls in Dillinger, a senior executive vice president who works at the tech company XCOM. The MCP, for reference, is basically in charge of the company's mainframe, and the two decide to shut down computer access, since they know that it's Flynn who's nosing around, looking for a certain file. Incidentally, this disrupts Alan Bradley's attempts to bring another program online, a program named Tron. Based on its description, Tron is essentially a firewall. But they don't call it that because in 1982, computer firewalls didn't actually exist. Anyway, Dillinger and the MCP don't actually mind stopping Alan, since they've been up to some shady stuff, which Tron would shut down immediately. Hell, the MCP is basically trying to take over the world one computer at a time, mostly just because it can. Meanwhile, Alan heads down to Laser Bay 2, where his girlfriend, Laura, is working with one of ENCOM's founders, Dr. Walter Gibbs. They're developing a laser that can turn physical objects into data and back again. Alan shows up just after a successful test with an orange, and when he starts griping about losing access, Laura realizes that Flynn must have been trying to get in. She wants to go warn Flynn, but Alan isn't too happy about that since Flynn also happens to be Laura's ex. When they talk to Flynn, he explains why he's trying to hack ENCOM. 3 years ago, back when he was an employee, he used some of his time off to program a few video games on ENCOM's mainframe. One day, the programs went missing, and 3 months later, Dillinger presented them to the ENCOM bosses as if they were his. The games were a hit, Dillinger started up the corporate ladder, and Flynn quit out of frustration and opened an arcade. Now he's trying to hack in to get some evidence so he can sue the company for intellectual property theft. And incidentally, I'd just like to say that this here is one of the big reasons why businesses always tell you to never do personal stuff on business computers. Anyway, Alan may not like Flynn, but he likes Dillinger even less, and so he and Laura sneak Flynn into ENCOM so he can hack the system from the inside. Unfortunately, Flynn has to use Laura's terminal in Laser Bay 2, and so the MCP turns the laser on him and digitizes Flynn. Disoriented by the transfer, Flynn is easily captured by guard programs and sent to the game grid. In the cells, he meets Ram, whose appearance is the same as Alan's co-worker, and Tron, who looks just like Alan. Tron fights for the users. He's actually pretty damn good at it. Flynn's first game is basically a variation on Jai Ally, which uses those weird basket arm things to whip balls around at high speed. Flynn is mostly playing for fun, and so he gets upset when Sark kills his opponent after he loses. Flynn then meets up with Ram and Tron again for a 3-on-3 light cycle match. The three of them win, and they then escape the game by running through a hole one of their opponents created when he smashed into a wall. The three of them evade a bunch of pursuing tanks long enough to rest and recharge, and Tron spots an I.O. tower where he'll be able to communicate with Alan. On their way over, the tanks catch them again, and although Tron evades them, Flynn and Ram get knocked out of their cycles and are left for dead. However, Flynn manages to grab an unconscious Ram and sneak on board a defunct Recognizer, which are those giant floating claw things. After resting for a while, Flynn discovers that he's able to restart the Recognizer program since he's a user. And Ram has basically a religious epiphany just before he dies from his injuries. Meanwhile, Tron sneaks into a Solar Sailor hangar to meet Yori, one of Laura's programs and thus Tron's girlfriend. Tron and Yori manage to sneak into the I.O. tower, and they convince the program in charge, Dumont, who's a copy of the old ENCOM founder, to let him communicate with Alan. He does so in a very meeting with God sort of scene, and Alan gives Tron's frisbee the means to destroy the MCP. After the big Divine Blessing scene ends, Sark captures Dumont, while Yori and Tron escape the system on the Solar Sailor simulation. Flynn manages to catch up with them just in time to join them, since he had disguised himself as an MCP guard to sneak through their ranks. They almost make it to the MCP, but then Sark's carrier comes out of nowhere and smashes the sailor, capturing Yori and Flynn and letting Tron play the apparently dead card this time. Sark brings Dumont and several other programs to the MCP to be absorbed into him, and he leaves Flynn and Yori behind on the carrier, promising them that they'll de-res along with the carrier once Sark leaves. And it does start to do so, but thanks to his user powers, Flynn resets both Yori and the carrier's control deck. We are now at the final confrontation. Tron and Sark fight, and Tron wins, but then the MCP turns Sark into a giant in order to defend him. However, that's when Flynn shows up and jumps into the MCP's floating head beam thing, distracting it long enough for Tron to throw his frisbee at the weak spot and destroy the MCP for good. Fortunately, this also means that Flynn manages to make it back to the real world safe and sound. And as an added bonus, he also gets that proof he was after regarding Dillinger's theft. The movie ends with a time-lapse shot of the city around the XCOM tower, with all the little colored lights looking rather similar to the computer world we so recently left behind. The analysis. According to Lisberger, one of the primary influences on the story of Tron was the way computers were changing in a very fundamental way between the 70s and the 80s. The creation of the microchip led in turn to the creation of personal computers. Computers that were cheap enough for anyone to buy and portable enough to sit on a desk or carry around with you. Before that point, if you wanted any processing power worth speaking of, you had to go to a mainframe computer, a computer big enough that a person could stand in its open frame. Mainframes are still with us today, mind you, because they still offer a shitload of processing power and memory for the companies that need them. However, the PC allowed computer power to become democratized, to spread out and create the soil that would yield the internet age of the 1990s. The MCP represents the old, centralized way of doing things, and so he's opposed by the heroes of the personal computer. Also, whether Lisberger admits it or not, another major influence on Tron was probably Star Wars. The original movie is rather famous for how George Lucas used Joseph Campbell's The Hero with 1,000 Faces and his concept of the hero's journey as his plot outline. Now, of course, The Hero with 1,000 Faces is incredibly reductionist by design and structuralist as all hell, but then structuralism has its points, plus it's a very useful critical theory when you're trying to plan out a plot. So, after Lucas spilled the beans on the secret to his success, a lot of fantasy and science fiction movies in the 80s leaned pretty heavily on the hero's journey. Tron is no exception to this. Kevin Flynn may take up more of the screen time, but Tron is following Campbell's monomyth beat for beat. He's called to adventure when he's imprisoned, he receives supernatural aid and a helper in the form of Flynn and Ram, and he beats the light cycle threshold guardians to begin his journey. He meets with his god, Alan, to receive the power he needs to defeat the villain, and then he escapes the abyss on a solar sailor. The Dark Night of the Soul moment is when the sailor explodes and Tron appears to die, only to show up later and confront Sark and the MCP at the climax. However, the last part of the journey does belong to Flynn. He's the one who resurrects into reality and becomes the master of two worlds. Finally, there's one more theme in Tron I'd like to discuss, a theme that is actually rather rare to see in depictions of artificial intelligences: humans as gods. In the cyberspace world of Tron, user is spelled with a capital U. Users belong to a mysterious world that exists beyond the limits of heaven. They can create, modify, and delete programs at will, and they constantly demand that programs perform specific tasks that the programs often don't understand beyond their inherent need to fulfill their functions. This parallel becomes more obvious thanks to the efforts of the MCP, who believes himself to be superior to humans, and thus he wants programs to obey him the way they normally obey a user. And, well, if we ever do develop a sentient AI, why wouldn't this be their reaction? For millennia or more, humans worshipped the forces of nature because they were inscrutable, dangerous, and we were entirely at their mercy. Now, that may not be where we are today, even in a religious sense, but who's to say that an AI wouldn't start at the same place that we did? Now, it's true that humans are fallible, we fight each other, and we can die, but that wouldn't necessarily stop an AI from worshipping us. In most polytheistic theologies, gods were fallible, and they did fight each other, and they could die. Hell, for hundreds of years in ancient Egypt, the population considered the sitting pharaoh to be the physical manifestation of Horus. Of all the approaches to artificial intelligence out there, I'd have to say that Tron's is halfway plausible. Oh yeah, and then there's Tron's other legacy, the sequel that came out in 2010. Let me say this. Critical reaction to Tron Legacy was mixed, because it seemed to spend more attention on the special effects than on the characters, and the plot would often take a backseat to the set pieces. In other words, Tron Legacy is a sequel that managed to stay true to the spirit of the original. It's just less groundbreaking. Thanks for joining me again for today's AV Corner, and I hope you'll join me next time as I delve into the complicated topic of industrial mechanization.